Calm, focus, happiness.
Hey, I'm Bruce Langford, Mindfulness Mode Podcast. Thanks for joining here on the show. It's great to have you with us. And if you would subscribe to the show here on iTunes, that would be amazing. Today, we have a terrific guest who I really admire, and I'm very impressed by him. His name is Joel Brookman. And he just is a genuine guy who truly believes in getting grounded and meditating, just being really focused. And he goes out systematically to learn how to do it. And he has achieved so much in his life. I think you'll enjoy it. So if you would subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for joining. And you can also subscribe on an app and watch or listen anytime that you're on the bus or in the car or whatever. So enjoy the episode. See you next time.
Hey, Mindful Tribe. Today, I am really excited. I have Joel Brookman here with me today. Hey, Joel, are you in mindfulness mode?
I'm working on it, Bruce. I think I'm most of the way there. So always a battle, but I feel pretty good.
Well, that's good. And I know with your book called Adjust Your Sails, I get the feeling that maybe you spend some time on the water, and that's a great place to be mindful, isn't it?
It really is. So the irony of the book is I am not a boater, but I live on the ocean. So somehow I don't love I'm one of these people that doesn't love a lot of maintenance, and boats usually require a lot of maintenance. But I love looking at the water, love surfing, love paddle boarding. So taking advantage of the water for sure.
Yeah, I love being near the water as well. I have a river that runs just near my my studio here, just kind of at the bottom of the ravine, so I can look down there. And then we have the Great Lakes near us here, so beautiful. We can go to the different lakes there. I just want to share your bio with Mindful Tribe, a little bit of what I put together, and this is what it says. Joel Brookman has a deep passion to use his expertise learned in the trenches of Wall Street to guide others in their journeys. He's a certified financial coach and a personal development expert focused on helping people clearly articulate their life's goals and then move on to achieving them. Joel's experiences as a senior executive with a Fortune 100 Wall Street firm. Presently, he's committed to helping as many people as possible through his podcast, which is called Second Navigator. I highly recommend it. It's a show which offers practical ways to become crystal clear on what you truly want in life. So Joel is a firm believer in mindful breathing, as you will hear if you listen to his podcast, and he ends every episode focusing on breath. Where did you get that idea to end every episode focusing on breath, Joel?
Bruce, I think it's important to stay grounded in life. And so what this brought to me was, it's selfish on my part. It helps me. And I figured if it helps me, it helps other people too. And if you're going into a day, this is just a shot. It's a few minutes, 4 minutes, usually 3 or 4 minutes of just, okay, how do I get where I want to go in life? And being grounded, I think, opens you up to the possibilities. And it puts you, to use your word, mindfulness, it really gets you in that mindfulness, that really great state of mind to tackle your day. And that's really what it's all about for me.
Yeah, it truly does. And I agree with you. If you want to learn something, teach it, embrace it, learn it yourself and teach it to others. And you're going to it's going to embody you after a while. So you work in the field of investments. That sounds like that's what you said. And that's pretty fascinating. That's pretty interesting.
It is. It's great to, I've been fortunate that I've been able to bring in a lot of money for some big Wall Street firms over my career. And now I have the ability to really teach people how to do it. So believe it or not, I'm doing a lot of work around development for the people in my day job. But it doesn't completely fulfill my passion, because a lot of the people I'm working with, they're not wired like some of us are. They're not as open to the possibilities. You can't really push that envelope as far as you can for instance, in your format, or as I can on the podcast or in the book. So it's a great challenge for me, but it gives me, at least the podcast gives me another avenue. And to your point, it holds my feet to the fire. So if I'm talking about it, I should be living it. And it really forces me into that mindset.
Well, I'd like to go back, Joel, way back to when you were a kid. When did you first know that you wanted to work with money and investing and that kind of thing? Did that come to you very early in life?
The thing that came to me with money is I just knew that I wanted to make a lot of it. That was it. Right.
Yeah.
And I figured if the best way to make money is to study how it works and to get a good understanding of it. And that was really the primary goal. And initially what I had done when I graduated college, I worked for a real estate developer, went on to start a company, basically with a guy that could build a house from the ground up. But I hated every minute of it. I'm not a construction guy. It's not who I am. And my brother was in the financial world. I always was intrigued for it. I went to school for finance, and one thing led to another, and I ended up in a similar role, and that was almost 25 years ago.
So you've never looked back?
It's been a great career. It really has.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, when you know what you want, but in my bio, I mentioned a couple of times that that's what you help other people with, trying to figure out what is it you want. Because isn't it astounding how many of us, I'll say, how many people in the world, how many of us really truly don't know what we want? We may think we do, but a lot of times we get some of those things and it's like, oh, I should have been more careful what I wished for. So why is it so difficult to figure out what we want in life?
I don't think it is difficult. It just takes a little bit of discipline. If you really think about it, think about how much time people spend planning a wedding, right? And yet we spend almost no time planning out our lives. And so the whole point of everything is, if you truly want to reach something, or if you want to achieve something, you have to understand what it is. So if I decided that I was going to get in my car, and I'm in South Florida right now, and if I'm going to get in my car and drive to Atlanta, before I go, I have to figure out how I'm going to get there. But the beauty of it is, I know that I want to get to Atlanta. But if I just got in my car and started driving aimlessly, well, what's the point? And so when we live our lives, so many people will just go and take follow every whim that life takes them in. And my point is if you have a destination that you would like to get to, focus on the destination and then get in your car and drive there. And that's the beauty of it. Now, if you're using the same analogy, if you're driving from South Florida to Atlanta, are you going to get lost? Maybe a little bit. Maybe there'll be some traffic along the way. And certainly maybe the few accidents that you're going to have to get around. But at the end of the day, if you're really focused on getting there, you will. It's just the discipline to keep moving forward. And it's the same thing with life. If you have the discipline to just continue onward, you will ultimately get where you want to go. You just have to stay there.
That makes total sense. Joel, what's the first win that you can remember that you had that was just exhilarating? It was just like, man, I can't believe I nailed this thing.
So the first win that I had in the financial business was, pulling down, when I got to a point where I raised $100 million in a year. Right. So the first million was amazing. After you raise 100 million, that's exhilarating. That was the point at which, I knew that the million was an understood thing. It would happen. The 100 million, not so much. And then, that day, and I think that hits on another point of mindfulness is, when you hit those milestones, do you take the time to truly appreciate them? And for a lot of people, they set goals and they just hit that goal and they just keep going. And, you have to celebrate the wins along the way. That's what.
And how do you
about.
Celebrate your wins? How do you do that?
For me, I first and foremost, I like to take a moment and just step back and just appreciate what it is, and just be thankful. Appreciation is such a great thing, and you talk about the happiest people, and you talk about the people that are most well-adjusted. Those are the people that live in appreciation. And it may be a difficult thing to do 24/7, but if you can truly appreciate what's around you, you're going to get there. And so just taking the time to do it. And then the other thing is if you have a certain goal, if you set yourself a reward for the goal. So for me, I had a deal with myself. I had an income range I wanted to hit. I put that in my mind. And I always said to myself, when I hit that number, I'm an avid skier living in Florida. I want to have a house on the side of the mountain in Vail, Colorado. I love the place. That's where I wanted to be. And so when I hit that number, I went out and I bought the house. That was my reward for hitting the number, for hitting the goal.
Wow.
And that drew me to that goal. It's so powerful.
And so how often do you ski now?
I get out there probably 4 or 5 times a year. I spend all summer. As soon as my kids are out of school, we go out there. So pretty much if there's a day when school is closed, we're in Colorado.
That's awesome. I
It's
love
amazing.
skiing too, Joel. I just love skiing. I'm completely crazy, but I didn't ski until I was almost, well, I guess in my mid 30s or something like that, but just love it. Can't get enough of it. So I certainly
about
feel
being in
for
the
you.
moment, right?
Yeah,
That's a great activity to get there.
It really is. Yeah.
Yes.
There's nothing like it. It feels amazing. So did you have, and I'm sure you have you had some major challenges along the way that pop into your head that you would share with Mindful Tribe that kind of were markers along the way?
Absolutely. So the big one was that construction company that
Yeah.
I mentioned to you. So I was hard. I mean, to say that I was stressed out was an understatement. I would get up in the morning and literally get sick 3 days a week. And it was, and I will tell you why. It was this intense fear of failure. I didn't control the outcome. I had people working for me that would do the construction work. I really didn't have those capabilities. I was running the business and getting clients. And I was always fearful that they weren't going to show up, that things were going to go badly, that I was just always worried about the worst case scenario.
Right.
And that was huge for me. And it took me years to get through it. And so when I think about why am I really doing this, it's because I figured out how to get control of that, right? How to not let my mind take me in the direction. And I got disciplined around my mind and really, what I would allow myself to take in and how much I would dwell on things. And that was the cause of my stress, just dwelling on the worst case scenario over and over again. So that getting through that, and then, a broken marriage, and then for the business ultimately failing, right? My worst nightmare came true. And that was a major hurdle for me, but I came through on the other side, and it was a great learning experience. And I don't think I would be where I am today had I not had that experience.
Wow. So what made you decide to start a podcast where you could share so much of what you've learned with others? Where did you get that first idea?
There's a guy I listened to. He runs a podcast called Morning Coach that I really liked, and it was similar. It was much longer than mine. It was, it's 20 or 30 minutes a day. But it had a lot. And as soon as I heard it, it resonated with me. And I thought, I'd like to do something like this. But I'm a big fan of what I'll call the distillation process. If you can say what you need to say in as few words as possible and make that resonate with people, that's really powerful. And so I thought if I could do that, and so I just started reading every book I could get my hand on. And that was for the course for the book originally, where I just said, okay, personal development, self-help, everything I could find, I read. And then I would just take information from those books. And I'm sure you're aware of this, and you know this, but when you read a lot of these books, there's 200 pages, but if you had to distill it down to, 10 pages, you probably could.
Right.
And so why not just take those sound bites and put those out there? And that was the real thought behind the podcast. That, and I thought it would be a good way to promote the book, but it's morphed into something much bigger than that for me.
Right. And I'm curious, do you usually script it? Do you usually journal those episodes before, or do you just kind of go in there and think, yeah, today I'm going to talk about this, and you just kind of talk about it?
So what I'll do is I write a blog, and I usually post the blog on Sunday, and I typically will write the blog with the podcast in mind. So I'll pick a topic, and then I'll break that topic into 5 different parts, and those 5 parts become the podcast. Now, what I'll do then is I usually go deeper on the podcast than I do in the section on the blog, but it gives me a good starting point. And then I'll just take it, and it's become a stream of consciousness for me. So I'll just take it, I'll look at it, and then, take a few deep breaths and then go.
Yeah.
And whatever comes out, comes out.
Yeah, because it doesn't sound like it's scripted. It doesn't sound like you're reading, but some people can do that and make it sound completely off the cuff. But it's so valuable because it just comes across like you are the guy, that you are the man, what you're talking about in a very confident, relaxed way, a very mindful way, really.
It's just, you get to a certain stage in life, you take a few knocks along the way, and you end, and you do a lot of research to try to figure out what it is that, in my case, it was what it is that drives people to be successful. What are those things, and to overcome struggles? How do people do it? And I got consumed with that concept, and so now I still read 3 or 4 books a month at least on different topics regarding success and anything around the spirituality side. I'm not a very religious guy, but I would say I've become a spiritual person. But anything relating to how do you achieve what you want in life, that is really my passion to try to figure out. And you pick up a lot of good things along the way.
Yeah, you sure do. Well, I want to talk to you about being a dad. I know you mentioned you're a father, and there's a whole lot of mindfulness that can play into that, or not, depending. Sometimes I notice families that don't seem to have a lot of mindfulness because there seems to be a lot of anger and distress and disorganization. Tell me about your role as a father. How does it feel, and how do you make it work?
Well, the first challenge for me as a father is I travel a lot. So for my day job, I'm gone probably, I don't know, if not every week, certainly every other week for 3 or 4 days. So what that forces me to do is appreciate the time that I have with my children and with my wife. So there's a genuine appreciation. The other thing that I've been able to do is I've been able to live in 2 places that I really enjoy being. So living on the beach and living in the mountains, that combination of things gives me something to truly appreciate. So I really take advantage of those things.
Right.
And it's just, I almost think of the time with my kids as, you take a snapshot, because I know that these moments are never going to come back. I have an 11-year-old and a now 15-year-old daughter. And I know how girls are. The 15-year-old she's a great, wonderful girl, but she's becoming a handful because she's 15. I mean, that's what 15-year-old girls do. And my younger one, who's 11, is she's a ball of love, and the 2 of them ground me. But now the younger one probably grounds me more than the older one, because she's just this, happy, always smiling. Very little bothers her. She's just a laid back kid, and it's been great for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's
so
awesome.
She makes it easy. She does.
That's good to hear. And I imagine it has something to do with what's happened in these years leading up to her being 11 and 15,
We hope so, but it's so far so good. But the whole fatherhood, it's so rewarding, and especially, my wife is a wonderful mother. I couldn't do it without her, and she's the reason that the kids are, I think, where they are, right? And as I said, I'm the one running around all the time. She's home dealing with everything every day. So and she keeps me grounded too. So the combination has been wonderful.
So with all the travel that you do, how do you stay grounded with that and not kind of feel like, oh, geez, I'm just all over the place?
I like being all over the place. So it doesn't bother me. Yeah.
Works
the irony
for you.
is, most people have issues with, they have to get on planes and deal with security. None of it bothers me. I take my computer with me. I can work from wherever I am. I'm always writing. I'm always reading. I'm always doing things. And I've got a ton of stuff I have to do for work too. So between all that, I'll keep myself busy. And if the plane's a couple hours late, then the plane's a couple hours late. It's okay. I'll get there. Yeah. I mean, so there's so much drama around travel, and people make such a big deal about it. It doesn't have to be. And I don't treat it like that.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, I also try to take advantage of the places I go. So I'll give you a quick story. 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, my flight got canceled. I was in New York in LaGuardia Airport, which, pretty crazy place.
Yeah. And
it was a Wednesday, and they canceled my flight. And Delta was having all kinds of problems out of Atlanta. It was a big mess. Mm-hmm. So they said, we can't get you home till Saturday. Oh, God, Saturday? Then I realized, I checked, I'm a big rock and roll guy. They were doing a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Brooklyn on Friday night. So I thought, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to make the best of it. Sure. So I went to the show, met a ton of people at the show, had one of the best times I've ever had. And I flew home Saturday morning. It all worked out.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And speaking of meeting people, have you met some of the listeners to your podcast that you hadn't met anywhere else, but you met them as a result of being listeners?
I have a few. I have to. Truth be told, I'm not as engaged as I should be with the listeners. I have a lot of people that in my industry and through LinkedIn that I've connected with, and I've connected with some other people on social media. But my goal is for this year is to be more involved and to get to know more people, and maybe do an event sometime in the future to really bring people together, because I think that's a great thing. There's some wonderful people out there. I hear from them from time to time, but I need to do a better job at reciprocating from that standpoint.
So what kind of an event would you do? What would it look like?
That's a great question. I like the idea. First of all, I'm intrigued by mastermind groups. I think that's something that I would love to put together. I do a lot of, that sort of thing at work in terms of just being the person in the front of the room that is really running meetings and facilitating. So I love the idea of getting a bunch of very talented people in the room with the sole goal of solving each other's problems. So that's something I'd very much like to do. And then the other thing would be just a workshop where, everybody comes in and says, okay, what are your goals, right? Everybody comes with, and we get very clear on, first of all, setting those goals in place, and then building a path to reach the goal. So you put a plan in place against it, and then you execute against it. And then after the fact, we do some coaching work around ensuring that you stay on that path. So I think that to build a workshop around that concept, and it's really just how do you get where you want to go in life? That's it.
Right. I think that'd be a great event.
I would love to do it. And one of these days, I think I'm going to do it. But,
yeah.
I think it is a good idea.
Yeah, I have a feeling you are. I've worked in bullying prevention for a long time, and I always like to ask a question about this because, it does relate to mindfulness, and a lot of times people don't really see that connection at first, but I truly believe it does. Have you got a story? Were you ever bullied, or do you have a story you can share with us?
I was thinking about that as I was reading through, and I listened to a few of your podcasts on it, and I'm intrigued by it. I was fortunate in that I didn't get bullied. I don't think I was a bully. I could have been nicer to a few people over the course of my life. I just remember there's one story that comes to mind, because I think when you look at bullying today, it's very different than I think at a time when you and I were growing up.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it stayed, you were bullied in school and you went home, and then there was this escape. And now with social media, I think there is no escape. So it's a really scary situation. And I look at my children and what they go through. And there's a no tolerance policy. My younger one is in private school. My older daughter is now in public school. She just is in 9th grade now. So she's in a public high school. And in both cases, if you fight, okay, first of all, if you bully at the private school or anything, they just deal with it, and you won't stay there very long if that's who you are. And there's a zero tolerance policy in both schools for fighting. So I think the old school way of the kids picking on you, let's just pop them in the mouth kind of thing. Well, that doesn't fly anymore. You can't do that. It may make them, it may have stopped the problem back in the day, but that's not an option anymher.
No.
And I don't know that it was ever a good option. But that was sort of how things got handled years ago. And I think now it's a matter of, what do you do? And I think the mindfulness part should play a role, because if you can separate yourself from what is happening. So in other words, if I am this person that is being portrayed by the bully and I see myself there, then the bully is winning. But if I rise above it and I'm able to, through mindfulness, understand that I am bigger than my life situation, right? And if I can get beyond that, that changes the whole dynamic, or can change the whole dynamic. The challenge, though, I think with children, I notice this with my own kids, getting them open to mindfulness at age 11, 12, 13, even, over between 10 and 18, I think it's tough to do. So I always look at that and I say, I talk to my children all the time about it, and we go through it. And I always wonder, right, there's got to be a better way to deliver it. And I'm not sure I have the answer to that. It just is. And I feel for the kids, because God, it's tough and by the way, not just kids, even teachers, they can't escape anymore. You're a teacher now.
Yeah.
Your whole life, if you do anything on social media, your kids find it. I mean, there's no escape.
True. Yeah.
It's a crazy thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, for sure. Joel, my next questions, I just got 5 quick answer questions. The first one is, who is one person who you would say has influenced your mindfulness?
Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, yeah, he's
Power
amazing.
of now. Amazing.
How has mindfulness affected your emotions?
It's made me a much calmer person. The meditation, the just being able to separate myself from my life situation has done amazing things for me and reduced my stress in the process.
Tell us how breathing is a part of your mindfulness. And I know how it is in your podcast, but let's talk about that.
Every morning, first thing I do when I get out of bed, I sit and I breathe. And I try to do it somewhere between 5 or 10 minutes and just clear my mind. Right? Before everything comes in, before the day starts, just get grounded. And that's just focusing on the breath and just letting everything else go.
So if you could recommend a book related to mindfulness, what would that be?
Well, Power of Now certainly would come to mind. There's another book that I really enjoy. Jack Canfield wrote a book called Success Principles, which I like very much. And it deals with we talk about success. He covers a lot of different angles around success. And then the third one might be Course in Miracles. I mean, that's just, you sit, you read 2 pages, very deep, and just contemplate it. So you talk about the ultimate mindfulness book. I think that's it.
Yeah. So can you share an app which helps you to be more mindful?
The app that I'm just trying to think of an app that really works for me. And I'm looking for my phone as I do this. There is an app. It's called, it's a meditation app. It has guided meditations on it. And I'm going to back away from the mic for one second. I'm going to tell you this app because I think it's free and it's amazing. So this app, I found it by accident. I was just going through the app store one day. And it's called Insight Timer.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it?
I am. I've done some guided meditations on there.
So you're on there. I have to check yours out. I'm going to do that as soon as we finish today. But I'm a big fan of that. I mean, there's so many different meditations there, and if you can't, sometimes there's so much going on that I have difficulty really clearing my mind, and I just go to that app.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's really a different kind of an app because you can, I hear people from who knows where. They just decided to record a meditation. Yeah, it's very cool. So that's really cool that you use that app. I think that's interesting. We didn't really talk a lot about your specific meditation practice and what that looks like. So you do some of it with guided, but tell us a little bit more.
Mostly it's going out for me. It's literally waking up in the morning. I have a right off of my bed. There's a patio that's on the ocean, and I literally will go either, depending on the temperature, I'll sit right in front of the window, or I'll just sit on the patio, legs crossed, and just either open eye or close eye, depending on where I am. But I just sit and breathe. It's that simple, and just the goal is just to focus on the breath and observe the thoughts that come in and let them go, right? It's just one at a time. And then eventually just get to a point of, the goal for me is bliss, right? Yeah. When I reach that point of just pure euphoria, that's where I want to get to. I can't say, I wish I could say I get there every day. I don't, but if I get there a couple of times a week, that's great. It's not a contest. It's just something, if there is a goal in meditation, that would be the one, for me on a daily basis to reach that point.
Well, your book, Joel, is called Adjust Your Sails. Can you tell Mindful Tribe a little bit about your book?
Yeah, I was reading all these self-help books, and the one challenge I had was sometimes getting through them was a challenge because it was all about, there was no story that kept my attention. And so I found that it took me a long time to get through them. So I thought, if I'm going to write a book, there's nothing there that is so new that nobody could benefit. But if I'm going to write a book, I need a story that will tie everything together. And so it's a business parable about a guy who was at it's a father and son. The father is sort of a Bernie Madoff type character. I shouldn't say the father is a good Bernie Madoff. Let's put it that way. Okay. Runs a lot of money for some very successful people. And they're both avid sailors, and they decide they're going to take their boat out, the father and son. In the last minute, they're going to sail to Ireland. I'm sorry. The last minute, the son decides because he's got this girlfriend, he's not going to go. So the dad goes alone and doesn't make it. And now the son is left to run the business, and the son is not what the father was. 2008, the financial crisis comes along, the business gets wiped out, and he loses money for everybody in town, and he's in Boston. And so he just decides he's got nothing left to his name except this boat, takes off on the boat, decides he's going to set sail to Ireland, do what his dad couldn't do, runs into this woman on the boat. She finds that she talks about this book that he's written, and it turns out it was his father. And the book is literally more of a personal development book. How do you get where you want to go in life? So it's sort of a book within a book, so you can sort of keep your attention as you go through it. And I think there's some good stories that come as a result of that, and then some good takeaways.
It sounds fascinating. Is this book on Audible?
It's not yet. Actually, it's funny. I recorded the audiobook. I just have to post it and publish it. But it's available on Amazon right now. Right. And so it's out there, and you can get it either in electronic or hardcover. But in the next probably 3 months or so, I'm gonna get it up on Audible.
Oh, super. So how can Mindful Tribe reach out to you and connect with you, Joel?
The best way is through email, and my email address is just, my name is Joel at joelbrookman.com. I think that's the easiest way, and I'd love to chat with anybody that has some interest, and we're talking about my favorite topic right now, so I'm always enthused by it, and I'd love to hear from some of the listeners. That'd be wonderful.
Well, it's great to spend time talking with you, Joel, and learn about you and what you're up to and everything. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Bruce, it's a wonderful show, and I just appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, you take care. Have a good rest of your day. Yeah, bye now.
Hey, thanks for joining us here on the Mindfulness Mode podcast. Like I said, if you would subscribe, that would be awesome. And just join us next time. That'd be terrific. Thanks a lot. Bye now. Calm, focus, happiness.